Is the slide visible to all?
Yes, sir.
Okay. So performance appraisal, anything on performance appraisal? What do the graphics tell you? The pictures that have been put up on the cover page? Someone please speak up. What is your understanding of performance appraisal? And then based on that, what do the pictures that have been included on the cover page tell you? No one speaking up?
Review of employees' performance, job performance.
Yes. So basically, when we say performance appraisal, we are talking about some sort of measurement, right? Some sort of measurement. That's what, I mean, review, it cannot be, outrightly subjective. Of course, an element of subjectivity is bound to be there. But then when we say appraising performance, we are basically talking about measurement, measuring employees' performance on certain specific performance parameters, and then taking a closer look. You're using magnifying glass, so that means taking a closer look. So it's about measurement, and it's measurement with respect to, basically what I'm trying to communicate through these graphics is measurement with respect to certain underlying logics and fundamentals. It just cannot be subjective and biased. So it's about measurement, taking a closer look, right? So let me start on that note. And now let's move on. So I'll share with you a few definitions of, performance appraisal given by different scholars and authors. The first one is, this is given by Wayne F. Casio, right? It says review of job relevant strengths and weaknesses of an individual or a team in an organization. I'll just read through this and then probably we might be able to ignite some discussion here. Dale S. Beach says systematic evaluation of individuals with respect to their performance on the job and their potential for development, right? So this is another definition. Another one is formal systematic assessment of how well employees are performing their jobs in relation to established standards and the communication of that assessment to the employees. So I've come up with three definitions. There can be many, right? So the तीनटा डेफिनेसनमा कुन चाहिँ डेफिनेसन अलि more specific and appropriate लाग्यो तपाईहरुलाई? Someone please speak up.
Third one.
Third one, why? Yes, why? Yes, of course, third one, but why?
It just does not speak about how employees are performing, also about communicating the assessment to the employees.
Yes, very true. The third one talks about, it not just doesn't talk about assessing performance. What it says, it assessing performance in relation to certain standards. So when you are assessing performance, it cannot be your personal opinion, right? It has to be with respect to certain objective established standards, and moreover, it cannot be a one-way traffic. It cannot be a hush-hush approach. Someone appraises your performance and you don't know about it. So it also talks about communication of that assessment to employees. So among these three definitions, the third one, of course, appears to be more specific, right? So when you say performance appraisal, then simply put, we're talking about, when we say performance, we're talking about effectiveness and efficiency. I believe you know these terminologies, right? And maybe other than effectiveness and efficiency, it may be a few other issues like absenteeism, tardiness, कति punctual छ, मतलब absenteeism को rate के छ. Effectiveness means effective the job in terms of meeting organizational objectives, how effective the job is. Efficiency चाहिँ utilization of resources को कुरा आउँछ हैन, कति मतलब minimum time resource use गरेर कति resource use गरेर त्यो result deliver भएको छ. Effectiveness is the qualitative aspect of it, and efficiency more, I mean, resource utilization को कुरा गर्दैछौँ, right? So basically when we say performance, it relates to effectiveness and efficiency and a few other issues as well, right? Like absenteeism, tardiness, so on and so forth. So that's performance, and appraisal is the assessment of performance and subsequent rewards and corrective measures. We all know this, right? I'll ask a very simple question. Try answering this question. What do you think is the objective of performance appraisal? Performance appraisal kino गर्ने? Someone speak up. This is a simple question. Try answering it.
For the evaluation of employee performance.
Yes, that's what performance evaluation is for. But then why would you want to evaluate employee performance? This is a simple question, but then, when you try answering it, it doesn't get that simple. Yeah? Yes, you said for the evaluation of employee performance. Right? But
To motivate them.
To motivate them. Okay. Would you want to add to that?
Sir, like someone is performing really well, we could reward them or like promote them so they would feel motivated towards their job.
But then it can be the other way around as well, right? If someone is not performing well, if you go and tell the person you are not performing well, it may not work well for his or her motivation. That argument is also true.
Yes, sir.
Motivation, yes. Any other argument? Yes, of course, motivation. To basically, you're talking about positive reinforcement here, right? Ramro kam garnala positively reinforce garyo, the person gets motivated and puts in more efforts to come up with even better performance going forward. Yes, valid point. Anything else? Anyone?
Organizational goals meet workers okay.
Okay, so yeah. To what extent individual efforts and our individual outcomes have contributed towards the fulfillment of overall organizational objectives? Very true. Very true. We'll talk about it as we move along. Basic objectives are reward allocations and corrective measures. You people have already talked about it. Reward allocation would be if someone comes up with good performance, then that behavior has to be positively reinforced. Right? It could be reward may come in the form of salary increment or promotion or job enrichment, so on and so forth. Right? And corrective measures would be if the performance is below par. Corrective measures would be positively training and development, feedback, and all those things. In certain cases, negative reinforcement that may come in the form of transfer, demotion, or even termination, right? Another is training needs assessment. In training needs assessment, we said it's basically about answering 4 questions. What are organizational objectives? What tasks need to be performed to fulfill those objectives, and are those tasks being performed the way they should be? So to answer that question, are the tasks being performed the way they should be? You need performance appraisal analysis, performance appraisal score, right? So any gap between set standard and actual performance would mean that there is scope. There might be some scope for training and developments, right? In a way, so performance appraisal is also useful for training needs assessment and validation of selection devices. We've already done this. Would anyone want to add to this? How is performance appraisal related to validation of selection devices? Yes, Sashish, go ahead.
Direct interview observationबाट थाहा हुने भएकोले
No, that is training. I'm talking about validation of selection devices. So you've devised a selection. I mean, you put in place a selection device. Let's say a specific employment test for employee, selection, right? So how would performance appraisal provide you inputs as to whether that selection tool is appropriate or not, whether that selection tool is selecting the right set of people in the organization? That was the question.
I could not connect, sorry, sir.
No, do you remember we said there are 5 parameters with respect to which we could assess the authenticity of a selection device? We talked about reliability.
Yes, sir.
Validity, and under validity we talked about criterion related validity. No criterion related validity. We talked about predictive validity. Do you remember? अस्ति
Quite
भर्खर
good, sir.
पढायो यार उसमा कीबोर्डमा अस्ति भर्खर क्वेशन पनि आएको थियो. Would anyone want to add to this? We discussed कि कुनै पनि selection device appropriate हुनको लागि एउटा मेजर के हो भने the people there has to be some degree of fair positive correlation between the selection scores and the performance appraisal scores. Do you remember that?
Yes, sir.
Yes. So selection ma एउटा certain tool, for instance, let's say a selection test use गरेर एउटा employee select गर्यो, त्यो टेस्टमा employee scored let's say 80, 85, 90 out of 100, right? अनि त्यो after 1 year or after a certain period, त्यो performance appraisal period को year end evaluation if the employee scores 40 out of 100 in the performance appraisal, scale, then you would want to revisit the selection device, right?
Yes, sir.
Can be many reasons behind this, but then one of the reasons could be that the selection device is not appropriate in the sense that it is not selecting the right set of people. Makes sense?
Yes, sir. But अर्को in another way selection test गर्दाखेरि चाहिँ अब कुनै एउटा जबको लागि कुनै एउटा रोलको लागि भनेर टेस्ट लियो, बट देन पछि सिलेक्ट भइसकेपछि चाहिँ ड्यु टु आई मिन वाट्स एभर सर्कमस्टान्सेस त्यो मान्छेलाई चाहिँ अर्कै डिपार्टमेन्टमा लगेर राख्दियो र अर्कै रोल दियो.
Yes. Yeah, of course. Comparison को scope हुँदैन भने चाहिँ doesn't make sense. Yes, you are right. Again, it may not be as straightforward as that. There are many issues that need to be considered, right? But then if there is a stark difference between the selection test scores and the performance appraisal scores, then one of the things you may want to revisit is the appropriateness of the selection device. In a sense, so the argument here is performance appraisal is also helpful or useful in validating the appropriateness or the authenticity of the selection devices. I mean, of course, there are many issues. Okay?
Yes, sir. Yes. Understood, sir.
Right? So yeah. So basically, when you say performance appraisal, we're talking about, when you say performance, we are basically talking about effectiveness, efficiency, and a few other issues related to organizational discipline. For instance, regularity, punctuality, tardiness, so on and so forth. And appraisal is the assessment of performance in relation to certain standards, and moreover, communicating those standards to employees and then taking subsequent actions. This is what, in a nutshell, this is what performance appraisal is all about, right? Now let's move on. Shall we move on?
Yes, sir.
Yes, sir.
Okay. Performance appraisal को कुरा गर्दा मेरो स्क्रिनमा माथि performance appraisal को कुरा गर्दाखेरि there is this thing called expectancy theory. There are many, of course, many theories pertaining to the performance management or the performance appraisal function of human resource management. त्यसमध्ये मैले एउटा चाहिँ यहाँ सेलेक्ट गरेर I am discussing that with you. Expectancy theory भन्ने कसैले सुनेको छ? छैन? So, okay, fine. Here are questions. So, why do people consciously act or behave in a certain way? Now, अहिले performance, human resource management, बिर्सिदिउँ, right? प्रत्येक individual को behavior लाई assess गर्ने हो भने there's a distinct pattern or a distinct manner in which people consciously act or behave. Okay? So the question is, why do you consciously act or behave in a certain way? Do you understand the question? I would want you people to make an attempt to answer it. Consciously meaning you put in certain conscious efforts to, subconscious, unconscious behavior is a different thing, right? But consciously, you put in conscious, deliberate efforts to act and behave in a certain way, right? And why do human beings do that? Let's have a discussion on this. Yes, Shera, please go ahead. Would anyone want to volunteer and answer this question? Question saying, let me repeat, हामी consciously आफ्नो पुरो होसो हवासमा we put in certain efforts to act and behave in a certain way, right? And why do we act and behave in that particular manner? What is the reason behind that is my question. You should speak up. This is not getting anywhere. Yes, Prakriti.
Maybe due to childhood learnings or life experiences.
Based on childhood learnings and life experiences. Okay. Yes. Yes, you are taking it to a different level, right? So then let me try to come back on this. Based on childhood experiences and but still the childhood experience upbringing learning sabai chizलाई गर्दाखेरि पनि there are multiple alternatives, multiple options in which you can act or behave, right? But then you choose to act or behave in a certain manner of the different
Sir, because we feel we are
possibilities that are. Sorry?
because we feel we are being judged.
You feel you're being judged.
Mm.
So just to appear nice to other people.
No, because certain kind of judgment हुन्छ भन्ने त जहिले पनि किनभने certain way consciously act गर्दाखेरि चाहिँ judgment को basis मा हुन्छ तर अब real हुँदाखेरि चाहिँ हुँदैन because consciously act or behave भनेको भएर चाहिँ because of the judgment भनेर भनेको.
Okay, fine. So यसमा म के भन्छु भने how other people judge me may be important and valuable for an individual, right? And it may not matter much for another individual, right? So if an individual is really, conscious and serious about how other people judge me, then he or she will act or behave in a manner that he or she believes would make him or her more acceptable to other people, right? But त्यही कुरा अर्को मान्छेको लागि म्याटर गरेन भने चाहिँ that may not be the determinant of that individual's actions and behavior. The point well taken. Would anyone want to add to this? Yes, Astha, go ahead.
So उनीहरुको इन्ट्रेस्टले गर्दा पनि हुन सक्छ नि.
Interest, okay. Interest. Yes. Yes, Bijesh, go ahead. The question is, why do you consciously act or behave in a certain way? Mahesh?
So no idea.
No idea. Okay. That's a good answer. If you have no idea, then no idea. Sashish, I come back to you again.
Yes, sir. We are a social animal. We have emotions and we kind of have expectations. I mean, in a sense that मैले यो गर्यो भने यो हुन्छ कि we have that hope. I mean, हामीले चाहिँ यो काम गर्यो भने अथवा मैले यसरी बिहेभ गर्यो भने मलाई यस्तो हुन्छ कि अथवा लाइक सेरा सेड अब सोसाइटीमा यसरी मैले बिहेभ गरेँ भने मलाई यस्तो सोच्छ कि I mean in work environment as well मैले यो कामहरु गर्यो भने मलाई पछि रिवार्ड आउँछ कि अथवा I might get valued, my value will increase.
Yes, very true. This was the answer that I was looking for. Although Sabali Deva answer more or less relates to the discussion, but then this was the answer that I was looking at. The word here is your theory ko naam नै expectancy theory भएको कारणले गर्दाखेरि people consciously act or behave in a certain way because they have expectations. This was the word that I was looking for. They have expectations, right? And they believe that acting in a certain way or acting in a certain manner gives them the best chance of realizing those expectations. So this is what expectancy theory is all about. Let's check what I've put up on the slide. Yes, the question is, why do people consciously act or behave in a certain way? Because they have expectations and because they believe acting in that particular way gives them the best chance of realizing their expectations. So the way it works is, individual actions are therefore guided by expected outcomes. So, what are your outcomes? I mean, what are your expectations? Expectations as in what are the expected outcomes that you are looking at? Basically, individual human beings को conscious behavior लाई चाहिँ त्यसैले नै guide गरिरहेको हुन्छ, right? So there are certain things that we need to understand under expectancy theory, performance reward linkage. People act and behave in a certain way because they have the perception that certain performance will lead to a certain reward, right? So if I meet the sales target this time or exceed it, that might lead to, so that'll give me a very good chance of a salary increment or a promotion or getting a job role that I like or prefer, right? So there's this thing called performance reward linkage. People strive for certain performance because they have they have the perception that that performance will lead to certain reward. So that is what performance reward linkage is all about, right? And another thing is effort performance linkage. Okay, I mean, achieving that certain performance would result in certain reward, understood, right? But then to performance achieve गर्न like के efforts लगाउने, त्यसमा पनि different options, different alternatives हुन सक्छ. So people will put in those efforts which they believe will give them the best chance of achieving that expected performance. There's this effort thing called effort performance linkage. So people put in certain efforts, put in those efforts that they believe will give them the best chance of delivering the expected performance, right? So that is effort performance linkage. And उनीहरूको अर्को expectation के हुन्छ भने that performance will lead to a certain reward, right? So the way it works is, and then of course, त्यो जुन reward हुन्छ नि, potential outcome हुन्छ नि, त्यसमा चाहिँ it has to be attractive to you. Again, someone was talking about people, judging me. That's why I'm conscious about it, which means ki judgment of people is an attractive reward for the individual. So, त्यो individual को action and behavior लाई चाहिँ त्यसले नै guide गर्छ. तर अरूको लागि अरू कुरा attractive हुन सक्छ. So there are three things when you talk about this. Is very important to understand as managers who are in charge of appraising the performance of their employees, right? First of all, the way it works is, yes, people would put in efforts. People would put in efforts that they believe will lead to certain performance, right? Obviously, certain sales target, a simple example, certain sales target meet गर्नलाई there could be multiple options, right? Door-to-door marketing हुन्छ कि अथवा भनौँ न अरू different approaches हुन सक्छ हैन. So त्यो different approaches मा कुन effort लाई चाहिँ prioritize गर्ने भन्ने कुरा चाहिँ there is this effort performance linkage. People would put in those efforts that would that they believe, सधैँ त्यो belief अथवा त्यो perception correct नहुन सक्छ, तर basically त्यही perception ले individual behavior लाई guide गरिरहेको हुन्छ. So people would put in those efforts which they believe would lead to the desired performance, right? And then they have this understanding, they have this perception that those, I mean, that performance that they are able to deliver through these set of efforts would lead to certain rewards, right? And those rewards would fulfill their personal objectives. So this is what expectancy theory is all about. Does this make sense? Yes. Someone should speak up. Neha, please speak up. Ujjwal, you there? No one is speaking. Looks like everyone have just logged in and left, and this is not good. Archana, are you there?
Yes, sir.
So, बुझियो यो अहिले डिस्कस गरेको कुरा?
Sir, बुझे.
बुझियो? So would you want to sum it up? Share your understanding?
त्यो मान्छेहरूले people behave in a certain way because it helps to achieve their expectation. Only yes, sir.
So what do you think is the significance of expectancy theory for the performance appraisal function of human resource management? Why are you discussing this in the first place? Yes. There,
Yes, sir.
बुझियो?
बुझियो सर.
अब यसको पर्फर्मेन्स अप्रेजलमा यसको रेलेभेन्स के होला त? when we say not only appraisal, overall performance management भन्ने जुन कुरा छ त्यसमा यो एक्सपेक्टेन्सी थ्योरीको तपाईको रेलेभेन्स के देखिराख्नु भएको छ? Why are you discussing this?
कुनै पनि अर्गनाइजेसनमा अब यो why this necessary भन्ने कन्सेप्टमा यो we are discussing जस्तो लाग्छ.
मलाई एकदम सिम्पल हिसाबमा भन्ने हो भने as managers you have to understand that people will not act or behave in a certain manner, okay, unless they understand that the acting in that manner will lead to certain performance and that will lead to rewards that are that will fulfill their individual objectives. Okay, so accordingly the rewards have to be set up. The performance, what are the desired set of performance that is expected from each employee has to be clarified, right? So one your performance, the individual employee what expected छ भनेर clarified हुनुपर्छ, right? So and then there has to be performance reward linkage. If you meet certain set of performance, these are the rewards that you are likely to get, and those rewards should be valued by the employees. Okay, those rewards should be attractive for the employees. On the effort side, as managers, it becomes your responsibility to help employees with the kind of efforts that they need to put to achieve the desired performance. Okay? So it's required while designing an overall performance appraisal system. It is required that we understand this. It is required that individuals act and behave in a certain way because they have expectations, and then they understand that certain kura they'll do those things which they believe will give them the best chance of realizing those expectations. And so as managers, you have to make sure that there is effort performance linkage, right? And there is performance reward linkage, and that those rewards have to be attractive for your employees. Makes sense?
Yes, sir.
Yes, Sashish.
Yes, sir.
You बुझ्यो?
Yes, sir.
यसमा तपाईको आफ्नो अर्गनाइजेसनल एक्सपिरियन्ससँग रिलेट गरेर केही चीज यसमा इलाबोरेट गर्न सक्नुहुन्छ? लेट्स have a discussion here.
अब एफर्ट र पर्फर्मेन्सको कुरा त भइहाल्यो होइन सर, बट अन द रिवार्ड्स पार्ट देयर आर लिमिटेसन्स. सो एभ्री एफर्ट र एभ्री पर्फर्मेन्सको आउटकम चाहिँ अब रिवार्ड चाहिँ हामीले जुन रिवार्ड आफूले सोचेको हुन्छौँ अथवा we perceived that we'll be rewarded with this and that, त्यो चाहिँ time bound अथवा am I audible, sir?
Yes, go ahead.
So there are कति अर्गनाइजेसनको रेस्ट्रिक्सनहरू हुन्छ, टाइम बाउन्ड रेस्ट्रिक्सन हुन्छ. सो रिवार्ड चाहिँ त्यो रिवार्ड हामीले जुन गरेको हुन्छ त्यो नहुनु पनि सक्छ सर. सो क्वाइट पोसिबली बी अब फाइनेन्सियल वेबाट वी आर गेटिङ पेड भन्ने हिसाबले पनि गर्न सक्छौँ. बट द थिङ वी आर टकिङ अबाउट प्रमोसन एन्ड अल, इट्स जति पर्फर्मेन्स जति एफर्ट्स हाले पनि प्रमोसन चाहिँ इट्स स्टिल क्वेसनेबल सर.
Yes. So, okay. Yeah, I understand. There's an organizational context to it. I understand what you're saying. Yes. Anyone would want to say anything on this? Let me wrap it up, right? यसको मलाई यो कुरा शेयर गर्नुको होल अब्जेक्टिभ के हो भने as managers, please understand these issues and keep these in mind. As Sashish pointed out, of course, in the real organizational context, it may not always be as simple or as straightforward as this, right? But having an understanding of this, and then at least maintaining it at the back of your mind will help you as managers. So the thing that you need to understand is मान्छेलाई काम गर राम्रो काम गर गर्नुपर्छ भनेर त्यसरी प्रेसर दिएर मात्र हुँदैन हैन people will not perform or they may not perform to their optimum level to the best that they can unless unless they understand that once they achieve that performance they'll be positively reinforced with certain rewards. So as managers you need to understand the performance reward linkage and त्यसपछि यो effort performance linkage line that you need to understand. So a basic understanding of this will help. Of course, in the real world, there is a galaxy of variables and issues to counter with. All right, this makes sense, everyone? Shall I move on? Hello.
Yes, sir.
Yes, sir.
Okay, the next slide says the typical performance appraisal process. A performance appraisal like step-by-step process मा यदि हामीले राख्ने हो भने एउटा फ्लो चार्ट बनाउने हो भने के स्टेप हुन्छ होला त तपाईहरुको विचारमा? Yes, go ahead. The question I'm asking here is, see guys, please speak up. यो पुरा नगर्ने हो भने त्यो चीज पढाउनुको कुनै अर्थै छैन. सबै चीज किताबमा छ, इन्टरनेट गुगल गर्यो भने सब चीज भेटिन्छ. Unless we interact and talk, doesn't make sense. And more so यो जुन हामी अलिकति रिमोट मोडमा पढिराखेका छौं त्यो बेला त it's even more challenging if you don't speak up. So the question I'm asking here is हामीले एउटा typical performance appraisal process step by step process मा राख्ने हो भने what should be the steps? Speak up. Who has not spoken? Let me pick that individual. Yes, Bijesh, you there? Neha?
Yes, sir.
You understood my question?
Just sound break भयो.
हजुर?
Sound break भयो.
Sound break भयो. अहिले आछ ठीक छ अहिले?
Yes, sir.
Am I audible, everyone?
Yes, sir.
Yes, so my question is, your performance appraisal process like हामीले step by step sequence मा राख्ने हो भने what do you think should be the first step? ल अझ पुरै पनि नजाउँ, let's take it one at a time. What do you think should be the first step in performance appraisal? Would anyone want to speak up? Please speak up. I mean,
So एउटा parameter fix गर्ने, standard जस्तो maintain गर्ने.
yes, of course. See, it's pretty straightforward. I mean, yes. So, yeah. So it starts with establishing performance standards, right? You're saying you want to appraise an individual, right? But then how will you, against what will you appraise the performance of that individual? That has to be fixed. That has to be determined in the very onset, in the very beginning, right? So you start with establishing performance standards, right? The appraisal process, in essence, begins with the establishment of performance standards. The performance standards केमा determine गर्छ भने you establish those performance standards in accordance with the organization's strategic goals, and then these standards should in essence, emerge from the overall strategic direction of the organization, and more specifically the job analysis and the job description that exercise that we do during the acquisition phase of HR, right? So and then these standards have to be very clear and specific. Yeah, but doing good work cannot be a standard, right? So these have to be very specific and objective to the extent that it is possible. Or, I mean, in the real world, of course, I understand that no matter how objective you try to make it, an element of subjectivity is likely to be there, right? Because we're talking about the real world, we're talking about human beings, so subjectivity won't. But then to the extent that it is possible, it has to be specific and objective. So as I said, doing good work cannot be a standard, right? So basically you start with establishing performance standards, and then it cannot be a one-way traffic, right? You have to communicate those standards to employees. The second step would be communicating those standards to employees, right? It is necessary to communicate what is expected of the employee, okay? So that the employee doesn't have to guess what is expected out of me. I think you might be able to share your experiences. कसैलाई भएको छ जबमा चाहिँ you don't know what is expected out of you. You don't know what kind of constitutes good work. राम्रो काम त गर्ने तर मैले positive performance appraisal पाउनको लागि what are the set of things that I need to do भन्ने clarity नै नभएको अवस्था छ कसैले? Would anyone want to share any experience as such? Yes, Sashish, go ahead.
Not in my case, sir. We have predefined objectives. So the objectives say year ko beginning my हामीले set गर्छ, and based on that we'll be performing.
Yes, that's good. That's good. तर certain cases मैले आफ्नै करियरमा पनि certain cases मा मैले आफैले यो dilemma feel गरेको छु. You think you are doing well, हैन? You think you are doing well, and then suddenly performance appraisal हुन्छ अनि त्यो appraisal जे आउँछ you are not very happy. You're not very happy, and you don't know what went wrong. You don't know what went wrong. Okay? So it's required that these performance standards are set, and set मात्र होइन, त्यो supervisorले आफूले set गरेर राखेर त्यसको कुनै meaning भएन, हैन? These standards have to be clearly communicated to employees, so that, as I've already said, they do not have to take a guess as to what I'm expected to do, right? And during communication, it is required that the employees clearly understand it, because communication, as they say, is a two-way street, right? And mere information transfer from one person to another person is not communication if the other party doesn't understand it. So setting performance standards, sharing it with employees, and making sure that the employee and the supervisor, both of them are on the same page with respect to those standards. So that is the second step. Now the third step would be, what do you think the third step would be? The third step, of course, is measuring actual performance, right? मेरो slides देखिरहेछ अहिले?
Yes, sir.
I'm referring to multiple documents. के त्यही भएर स्क्रिनबाट नजाओस् भनेर. The third step would be you measure actual performance. So यसमा चाहिँ दुईटा important कुरा के भने what we measure and how we measure. Right? What we measure, we've already determined it. Performance standards have been defined, right? How we measure performance appraisal methods that we'll discuss as we move along, right? So third step actual performance you measure गर्नुहुन्छ. How has the employee done? And the fourth step, of course, is you compare your actual performance with standard, right? This is again, pretty straightforward. And after that, the fourth step is comparison of actual performance with standards, right? Basically, you note down the deviations between standard performance and actual performance, right? And after that, what you do is you discuss appraisal with the appraisee. Discuss appraisal with the appraisee. Now, this as a senior manager, मेरो आफ्नो job experience, this I found this one of the most challenging tasks of managers. Okay, discussing appraisal with the appraisee. The discussion can get really emotionally charged up at times. So it's we'll do a case study on this in the next session. You summon the important function. I mean, all these steps and processes are there, right? But then as supervisor, you need to discuss performance appraisal with the employee, right? So all roses, it would go great, right? But it doesn't happen that way. Employee shortcomings, areas for improvement, all those things also need to be communicated. And that's not easy. That's not easy. People, as I said, people might get emotionally charged up. So this at times becomes a really, stressful and hectic discussion. So this is one of the most important and challenging roles of managers. Discussing appraisal with appraisee. We'll do a small case study on this in the next session, right? So the fifth step would be discussing appraisal with the appraisee, and then finally positive reinforcement and corrective measures. So reward, training and development, and worst case scenario, but certain cases, negative reinforcement. Makes sense, everyone?
Yes, sir.
Yes, Sashish. Office, you said there's a well-defined, devised performance appraisal system in place, right? If you compare the practice followed in your organization to these steps, consistent steps, or how is it similar or different? Would you want to share something here?
Similar, sir.
Similar,
exactly,
right?
This is what happens, sir.
This is what happens, right? So actually आफ्नो experience share गर्नु for the benefit of everyone, right? So establishing performance standards मा तपाईको केसमा what happens? Beginning of the appraisal period मा certain standards are set. I believe those standards are one-sided तरिकाले set गर्दैन होला. Employeeसँग discuss गरेर mutually agreed upon हुन्छ होला, if I'm not wrong.
Yes, sir. We do it ourselves, sir. Staffले आफैले पढेर and then we list it out, and आफ्नो personal केही छ भने development को लागि केही छ भने पनि we can add it up. So it's based upon employees को only.
Okay, so performance standard. Okay, fine. के भने सुपरभाइजर र दुईजना बसेर सर्टन अनि त्यो तपाईले आफैले सेट गरेर स्ट्यान्डर्ड नै ओके हुन्छ कि त्यो चेन्ज हुन्छ पछि माथि गएर?
There is I mean एउटा स्ट्यान्डर्ड हुन्छ ग्रुप बैंक भरि एउटा स्ट्यान्डर्ड हुन्छ, कमन थिम हुन्छ ग्रुपले अचिभ गर्नुपर्ने, and then त्यसमा एड गर्नलाई चाहिँ we sit with the line managers and then we list it out.
Okay, so basically performance stand there's a already preset criteria. त्यसमा whatever changes or additions need to be made, the supervisor र employee claim they mutually agree on that, and then at the end of the appraisal period के हुन्छ तपाईको performance appraisal score लाई त्यो जुन set standard सँग comparison हुन्छ होला हैन?
Yes sir.
And then any experience of performance appraisal interview, performance appraisal discussion wherein the supervisor shared your performance appraisal with you, or any experience there?
Every year नै हुन्छ सर हाम्रो त यो. It's I mean formally नै गर्नै पर्ने हुन्छ, then there is system driven.
त्यसमा तपाईको experience के छ? How comfortable or how rather at times uncomfortable is it? यो जुन performance appraisal discussion हुन्छ नि,
हजुर,
जुन सुपरभाइजरले फिडब्याक दिइरा हुन्छ त्यसमा सबै पोजिटिभ कुरा त हुँदैन
सर,
अलिकति अनकम्फर्टेबल कुराहरू पनि होला. सो हाउ हेज बिन द एक्सपिरियन्स? मेरो एक्सपिरियन्समा चाहिँ यो आम सेयरिङ दिस, मसँग फिडब्याक सेयर हुँदाखेरि पनि अथवा मैले फिडब्याक दिँदाखेरि पनि it's not easy. You have to be very, very careful, and you have to literally weigh your words while communicating it to the employee. हैन भने in that case, I have had instances of employees literally breaking down, in tears, right? So this gets really hectic. So any experience here?
Yes, a kind of conflict नै हुन्छ certain scenario मा चाहिँ. अब expectation जुन अहिले expectations theory हामीले पढ्यौं, we do have certain expectations. मैले यो गरे भने यो हुन्छ भने in preconceived अब माइन्डमा चाहिँ अब मलाई यो अप्रेजलमा यो कुराहरू चाहिँ मैले पाउँछु होला भनेर त्यो ब्याक अफ द माइन्ड त्यो भइरा हुन्छ सर. एन्ड देन इफ द्याट डज नट कम अप, देन थिङ्स start to get a little bit, I mean, अलि अप्ठ्यारै हुन्छ and the choice of words and जुन अब यो काम यसरी गरेन सर यान त्यान यस्तो कुराहरू हुँदाखेरि चाहिँ at the end of the year त्यो एउटा कुराले त्यो बेला मात्र भनेर अड्काइदिने रिवार्डै अड्काइदिने खालको पनि इन्स्टेन्सेस चाहिँ हुनसक्छ सर सो त्यसले अलिअलि हट चाहिँ गर्छ पिन्च चाहिँ गर्छ
Yes, so all of you will become managers, senior managers as your career moves along, right? Sooner or later you गर्नुपर्ने हुन्छ discussing appraisal with the employees. As I've said, we'll do a nice case on this in the next session. Please understand that this is one of the most important and critical functions of managers, and it's not very easy. At times it might get really upsetting. So please understand.
So yeah, I want to add something more. Sir.
Yes.
So अहिलेसम्मको फिल गरेको कुरा चाहिँ this should not be एउटा त्यो फर्मालिटी पुरा गर्नको लागि अर्गनाइजेसनले गरेको एक्टिभिटी जस्तो चाहिँ गर्नु भएन एन्ड दिस शुड नट बी मतलब टाइम वेस्ट हुनु भएन यो चाहिँ इयरको एकपटक हुन्छ हाम्रो केसमा पहिले सेमी एनुअली हुन्थ्यो बट दिस शुड बी ह्यापनिङ अन अ मन्थली बेसिस अर आई मिन अन अ फ्रिक्वेन्सी बेसिस भनेको if the employee is not performing as per the standards that should be communicated well before.
Very true.
यो गरेन भने यो दिस you should not be expecting this भनेर चाहिँ पहिले नै क्लियर आउट गर्नुपर्ने हुन्छ नट एट द एन्ड अफ द इयर एन्ड देन त्यो बहाना जस्तो बनाएर अड्काइदिने खालको त्यस्तो टेन्डेन्सी गर्यो भने चाहिँ द रिटेन्सन रेसियो एम्प्लोइको रिटेन्सन रेसियो इट्स गोइङ टु बी ह्याम्पर्ड
Yes, very true. Feedback and continuous basis money so that the employees are not caught with a surprise at the end of the appraisal period, right? So throughout the year, if no feedback comes, you pretty much understand that you're doing fine. And end of the period, suddenly, if it's communicated to you that you probably were found wanting in so and so areas, that may not, as you said, that may not go down well with the employee. So yes, point well taken. Continuous feedback कुरा हुन्छ यो चाहिँ हामी एउटा management by objectives भन्ने डिस्कस गर्छौं त्यसमा चाहिँ management by objectives talks about frequent and continuous feedback. Anyway, so is this clear? Is this yes? Who's this? Sira, तपाईं अलिकति ऑडिबल भएन तपाईं माइक चाहिँ अलि मुखको नजिक ल्याउनुस् न यस गो अहेड
मेरो पनि छ मेरो सँगसँगै काम गर्ने कलिगको पनि छ हैन अनि हाम्रो चाहिँ अब बेसिकली ब्रान्च परफर्मेन्स मेजर गर्ने भनेको चाहिँ अडिट रिपोर्टले हुन्छ के अनि अडिट रिपोर्ट चाहिँ राम्रो आएको थिएन त्यो टाइममा अनि गुड सब स्ट्यान्डर्ड भन्ने आएको थियो द्याट इज बिलो एभरेज खालको थियो अनि त्यति बेला चाहिँ अब म चाहिँ अपरेसनमा काम गर्थ्यो अर्को साथी चाहिँ मार्केटिङमा काम गर्थ्यो अनि त्यसपछि अनि अपरेसनमा काम गर्दाखेरि चाहिँ मेरो पर्सनल जे जेडीमा हुन्छ मेरो त्यो चाहिँ अब मैले फुलफिल गरेको थिएँ तर अब एज अ टिम काम गर्दाखेरि ब्रान्चको पर्फर्मेन्स एज अ होल राम्रो आएन अनि अब मैले गएर कुरा पनि गरेँ हाम्रोमा चाहिँ इफ प्रब्लम छ र सेटिस्फाइड छैन भने कुरा गर्नुपर्ने हुन्छ नट नेसेसरी कि यो एउटा स्टेपै हो भनेर डिस्कस चाहिँ गर्नुपर्ने चाहिँ हुँदैन हैन
ओके
अनि त्यो भएर चाहिँ आई वेन्ट अनि मैले उहाँलाई भने कि यस्तो यस्तो छ अनि सी सेड कि ब्रान्चको पर्फर्मेन्स यस्तो आयो अब त्यही भएर हो अब ब्रान्चको पर्फर्मेन्स सबै सब स्ट्यान्डर्ड आएको बेलामा तिमीले के काम गरेर मैले तिमीलाई गुड दिउँ या भेरी गुड दिनुभएको थियो भेरी गुड दिनुभएको थिएन अनि भेरी गुड दिउँ भनेर भन्नुभयो अनि मैले ओके ल ठिकै छ गोल अचिभ गर्नुपर्ने हो भएन भनेर मैले छोडिदिएँ तर मेरो साथी चाहिँ मार्केटिङमा थियो अनि उसले चाहिँ गएर कुरा गरेछ कि मलाई किन भेरी गुड नदिएको मेरो सबै टार्गेटहरू मिट भएको छ भनेर अनि उहाँले चाहिँ अब हाम्रो त्यहाँ अरू के पनि हुन्छ भन्दाखेरि तपाईँको जब नलेज कति छ अनि जब इफिसियन्सी कति छ भन्ने पनि हुन्छ कि त्यो एउटा जब नलेजमा पनि स्कोरिङ हुन्छ अनि त्यसपछि अनि उसलाई त पुरै इकोनोमिक सिचुएसनको क्वेसन गरेर तिमीलाई यो थाहा छ तिमीलाई यो थाहा छ सेन्ट्रल ब्याङ्कले यो किन गर्छ भनेर यस्तो गरेर केही पनि बोल्नै नसक्ने बनाएर लाइक हुन्छ नि रिटर्न गरिदिनु भएछ कि अब हामी जे सोच्छौँ हुन त हामीलाई त्यो नलेज नेसेसरी पनि हो तर होइन पनि नि त जब नलेज भन्ने पनि हुन्छ कि
एक्ज्याक्टली या तपाईले पोइन्ट आउट गरे इस्युलाई चाहिँ मैले इफ आई हैव अन्डरस्टुड इट इफ आई हैव अन्डरस्टुड इट आई सी टु प्रब्लम्स देयर हैन मेरो एउटा तपाईले भनेको बेसिसमा मैले क्विकली कन्क्लुजन निकाल्दाखेरि एउटा चाहिँ appraisal system नै अलिकति फ्लड जस्तो लाग्यो मलाई किनभने ब्रान्चको पर्फर्मेन्स नराम्रो हुने बित्तिकै सबैको पर्फर्मेन्स नराम्रो हुने हो भनेर हैन इन्डिभिजुअल लेभलमा पनि पर्फर्मेन्स हेरिनुपर्छ पहिला सुरु इन्डिभिजुअल टार्गेट्सहरू मिट भएको छ भने चाहिँ इन्डिभिजुअल अब्जेक्टिभ्सहरू मिट भएको छ र स्टिल ब्रान्चको पर्फर्मेन्स आएको छैन भने द्याट इज नट योर फल्ट that low performance of the branch cannot be attributed to your performance because as long as you've met your performance standards, that is one thing. अब अर्को अब त्यो मार्केटिङको साथीलाई उल्ली बिल्ली बनाएर पठायो भने the branch manager is playing politics there. अब nothing can be said about it. मान्छेको मुख बन्द गर्नलाई you abuse your position of seniority in the organization and then literally start junior staff हो भने अब that's a different issue.
त्यो आन्सरेबल पनि त भएन नि त एट टाइम्स अब त्यो क्वेसन त अब जब नलेजमा त हामीलाई पनि एटलिस्ट ब्याङ्किङमा के भइरहेछ कस्तो भइरहेछ भनेर थाहा पनि हुनुपर्ने पनि त हुन्छ नि त एट टाइम्स अनि अब त्यो राइट पनि हो रङ पनि हो एउटै अब त्यो कार्ड प्ले गरेर
यस्तो जब नलेज थाहा हुनुपर्छ तर त्यो सिचुएसनमा इम्प्लोइको पर्फर्मेन्स अप्रेजल भइसकेपछि उसले आफ्नो डिसस्याटिस्फ्याक्सन लिएर जाँदाखेरि त्यो क्वेसन गर्ने चाहिँ आई डोन्ट थिङ्क द्याट इज द right occasion to raise those questions. Okay? So basically, तपाईँको केसमा चाहिँ despite of you meeting all your targets and surpassing the set targets, ब्रान्चको पर्फर्मेन्स राम्रो नभएर यसपालि स्यालेरी इन्क्रिमेन्ट हुँदैन अथवा भए पनि थोरै हुन्छ आई मिन दोज थिङ्स आर देयर के तर ब्रान्च पर्फर्मेन्स चाहिँ तपाईँको पर्फर्मेन्स सबै मिट हुँदाहुँदै पनि ओभरअल पर्फर्मेन्स भएन भनेर तपाईलाई नै नेगेटिभ पर्फर्मेन्स फिडब्याक आई मिन इभ्यालुएसन दिने भने चाहिँ नट द राइट थिङ टु डु इफ आई एम नट रङ
जस्तो मैले त्यो एक्सपिरियन्स मात्रै सेयर गरेको त्यो भयो भनेर होइन नेक्स्ट इयर चाहिँ उहाँले अब त्यो साथीले सोधिसकेको थियो अनि म मात्र थिएँ मलाई चाहिँ भेरी गुड दिनु भएको थियो भन्नु खोजेको त्यस्तो त्यस्तो सिचुएसन पनि हुन्छ इन्स्टान्सेस पनि हुन्छ अनि केही पनि गर्न पनि सकिँदैन अब त्यहाँको
यस जो अब आफू म्यानेजर भएपछि चाहिँ based on these experiences, I hope you'll be fair with your employees. That is the best I can say.
Yes.
Discussion on this. So shall we move on? Okay. Yeah.
Sir, यसमा कति थप्न मन लाग्यो सर
Yes.
Like she said, हाम्रो यो मैले अघि भने सर हाम्रो एउटा ब्याङ्कको एन्टायर ब्याङ्कलाई एउटा कमन आई मिन अब्जेक्टिभ आई मिन स्ट्यान्डर्ड सेट गरेको हुन्छ दिस पर्टिकुलर इन्स्टेन्स अडिट रिपोर्टमा अडिटको रेटिङले चाहिँ एन्टायर डिपार्टमेन्ट अथवा एन्टायर ब्रान्चलाई एफेक्ट गर्ने हुने भएकोले चाहिँ इभन दो इन्डिभिजुअलले जति पर्फर्म गरे पनि द्याट विल एफेक्ट किनभने that has contributed मतलब सब एम्प्लोइले कन्ट्रिब्युट गरेर त त्यो अडिट रिपोर्टमा अब जति आउनु पर्ने त्यति मिट नभएको पनि हुन सक्छ सो बेस्ड अन द्याट त्यसले पनि इन्डिभिजुअल पर्फर्मेन्स अप्रेजलमा चाहिँ ह्याम्पर चाहिँ गर्नु पनि पर्छ सर किनभने
yes definitely if the overall objective is not met then no matter how hard you worked or what individual targets you met it has not led to overall organizational performance understood that is likely to have an impact on individual employee performance understood तर त्यो कन्टेक्स्टमा पनि you need to discriminate between performers and non-performers this is all that I'm saying okay?
Yes sir okay sir
am I making sense
yeah understood sir
yeah so let's move on performance appraisal methods so what we measure भन्ने कुरा त performance standards ले determine गर्छ right अब how we measure भन्दाखेरि there are different methods that could be adopted right let's quickly discuss those methods so basically when we say performance appraisal methods your HR yes
sir one thing is I want to ask that if during appraisal time if they indicate our negative thing then how we convey with them
sorry
during appraisal time if they saw me their on negative things like that
manager ko रूपमा तपाईले so during appraisal question you are trying to ask is if you have to communicate negative things to your employee during appraisal, how do you do it? That is the question, right?
Yes.
For now, we'll do a beautiful case study next time. How to start the discussion, what you should be saying, how to end it, all those things we'll discuss. Okay? For now, just to answer the question is understanding that this is a challenging business, and giving importance to both issues. Okay, the objectivity of the matter. If there is anything negative about the employee, that needs to be communicated. Giving importance to that, but at the same time, giving importance to human emotions as well. I have to communicate it to the employee, and then I also have to make sure that the person takes it professionally and doesn't feel bad emotionally. यो दुईटा कुरालाई चाहिँ ध्यान दिन आवश्यक हुन्छ अहिलेलाई चाहिँ तपाईको क्वेशन आन्सर गर्नलाई I'll say this much, right? In the next session, when we discuss the case, we'll talk about the different nitty-gritty associated with the discussion. All right? Made sense?
Okay, sir.
The whole idea is communicating how the employee has performed during the appraisal period. Okay? And making the person feel bad is not the idea. त्यो कुराले उलाई performance better गर्नको लागि motivate गर्नुपर्छ. That the way you conduct the discussion, if that discourages or demotivates the employee, then there's something wrong. All right.
Sir, one thing I want to also discuss, because every person have some good and bad things, and
Yes.
if only indicate the negative part of their person, then how we convey and how we
No,
discuss.
you're missing the point. Okay, the good or bad thing, individual personality la judge gareko hoina ni performance appraisal. We all have our strength. I mean, positives and negatives. That's understood.
So last line of Sarah, that when she discussed with the manager, then he indicate to their negative part. That's why I want to ask.
You are again mixing up things. Okay, Sherali deko example the the manager that's a different issue altogether, right? But yeah, man, positive or negative thing, you are not passing a judgment on the individual. Okay, man, tag you are good or you are bad. I mean, your supervisor is not your father. Even your father or mother don't have that right beyond a certain point to pass judgment on your capabilities or your limitations. It's just that job there are certain specific objectives that as an employee that you are required to meet, right? If those objectives have not been met, then those are the negatives that you discuss with the employees. You are not saying you are good or bad. To negatives, if certain thing that the employee has or he or she doesn't have, if it is contributing towards those negatives, you discuss. Maybe if you do things differently, maybe if you change this behavior, that'll give you the best chance of meeting the organizational objective under discuss गर्ने हो. तर इन्डिभिजुअलको बारेमा जजमेन्ट पास गर्ने चाहिँ होइन. Did I answer your question?
Okay, sir.
If you are not able to perform well in the job, that does not mean that you are not good for nothing. I mean, you could do great in another job, right? So as a manager, performance appraisal with respect to, it has to be purely performance related. Yes? There are certain set of performance parameters that you need to attain to justify your salary or whatever benefits that you're getting from the organization. To meet what are the issues when to discuss? You're not saying as an individual, this you have this, you don't have this. I mean, that's not how to go about it. We'll discuss it more as we move along. Yes. Shall we move on?
Yes, sir.
So performance appraisal methods, basically you human resource literature तीनटा broad categories divide गरेको हुन्छ. Absolute methods, relative methods, and objective oriented method. Absolute method भनेको चाहिँ you are not making comparison between employees. प्रत्येक employees को absolute terms मा मात्र चाहिँ evaluation हुन्छ. Relative measure मा you are making comparison between employees. So the best performer, second best performer, or in a group order ranking. We'll talk about this. So the absolute method ma, each employee is being assessed in absolute terms in the sense that he or she is not being compared to other employees. Relative methods ma, comparison is done. Objective oriented method ma, basically preset set objectives को against ma चाहिँ employee लाई appraise गरिन्छ. त्यसमा चाहिँ the process that is followed is referred to as management by objectives. We'll talk about this, right? So absolute method, under absolute method, the methods that are widely used are essay, checklist, force choice, critical incident, graphic rating scales, behaviorally anchored rating scales, or bars, right? These are again straightforward. What I'll do is illustration just to create गरेको छु. I'll share that with you, and rather than I discussing it, you have a look at the illustrations that I'm going to share now, and then I would want to hear it from you as to what these should be all about. Let me start with essay. Okay, just a minute. Give me 1 minute. I'm opening a file. एउटा MS Word file share गरेँ मैले, देख्यो?
Yes, sir.
Just go through this. I'll give you 2 minutes to go through this. Go through this and then, make an attempt to define essay method of performance appraisal. Just go through this. Yes, someone speak up. I wanted to share another screen, man. I wanted to share this actually. I've shared the wrong screen, right? You देख्यो अहिले?
Yes, sir.
Go through this. मैले अर्को एउटा वेब पेज शेयर गर्दैछु तपाईहरुसँग. I wanted to share this. Go through this.
Sorry, अघिकै हो त सर?
अघिकै हो?
Yes, sir.
I've opened many files, man, so I'm getting confused. Yeah. What is happening, man? Here. So yes, someone please speak up. Essay method भने के होला? Hello. Are you there, everyone?
Yes, sir.
So speak
Yes,
up.
sir.
Method भने के होला?
सर एसए मेथड भनेको चाहिँ सर कुनै पनि एउटा फर्मेट नभएर यति र्यान्डम आराममा चाहिँ प्रयोग गर्दिन होला सर.
Yes, yes. So yeah. Basically, that's what it is. It is one of the oldest methods of performance appraisal. यसलाई is a grandfather of performance appraisal method भनेर पनि लेखा मैले कहीँ देखेको छु. So as you said, there is no structured format. The appraiser basically writes a narrative or basically an essay about the employee's performance with the and then accordingly a conclusion is drawn. Okay. You say it is not widely used because it is very, very open to, because there's no structure here. It is very, very open to prejudices and biases, right? It is not widely used these days. The positive side, if anything, right? Structure it allows for the discussion of a wide range of issues. Okay? So that's what essay method is all about. I don't think it's extensively used these days. So, is everyone clear on this?
Yes, sir.
Okay. So another method is, there's this thing called checklist method, right? So let me you share where is just a minute, eh? So this is the checklist method of performance appraisal for you. As you can see, basically, when we say checklist method, we're talking about a performance evaluation method in which the rater or the evaluator checks off applicable employee attributes. It uses a list of behavioral descriptions and checks off behaviors that apply to the employee, right? यसको राम्रो कुरा चाहिँ के हो भने जसले अप्रेज गर्छ नि, one who does the checklist does not evaluate the employee's performance. के त्यसको त्यो certain behavior, certain त्यो checklist मा mention भएको certain statement ले job मा positively contribute गर्ने हुन सक्छ, certainly negative contribute गर्न सक्ने हुन्छ हैन. So त्यो raterले check मात्र गर्छ अनि त्यसलाई weight अथवा score दिने काम चाहिँ अर्को मान्छेले गर्छ. So it reduces biases. Is that clear? Checklist method. Hello, please speak up.
Yes, sir.
Checklist method clear, va?
Yes, sir.
Yes, sir.
Yes, Prakriti. What is your understanding of checklist method? Speak up.
So in checklist method, a series of questions will be there.
Yes, a checklist is developed, right? Checklist based on job-related traits and behavior is developed, and then one person rates the checklist, right? त्यसपछि अर्को मान्छेले चाहिँ actual evaluation त्यसलाई weight अथवा score गर्ने काम चाहिँ अर्को मान्छेले गर्छ. And so, in a way, it is helpful in reducing biases. Is that clear, everyone?
Yes, sir.
Yes, no.
Yes, sir.
That's clear, right? So another method would be, let's quickly go through this. Another method would be forced choice method. Forced choice method, there are a set of 2 or multiple questions, multiple statements, right? But a certain particular job related trait of a behavior, there are 2 or more than 2 multiple questions. Of those questions, one statement contribute positively towards job performance and so of those statements you have to select one statement. Okay, so let me share this with you. Forced choice method. Just go through this. So when we say forced choice method, we're talking about a performance evaluation method in which the evaluator or the rater must choose between two or more specific statements about an employee's work behavior, right? So each statement may be favorable or unfavorable to the performance of the job. So the appraiser's job is to identify which statement is the most descriptive of the individual being evaluated. So in some cases, generally pick a statement that best describes the employees. So in some cases, it could also be pick a statement that least describes the employee. So multiple statement forced choice choose forced choice method, right? Again, isko advantage same. The appraiser, one who does the evaluation, does not know the right answers. Behavior job positively contribute. The person does not know the right answers. It is some other person who does it, right? So in that way, it is also less prone to biases and prejudices. Does that make sense? Hello.
Yes, sir.
First choice method. Bujila Sasis, you sum up garona. के बुझ्नुभयो first choice बाट?
Different options बाट एउटा option pick गर्न नै पर्ने हुन्छ. So which best or least describes the employee, they choose गर्नु पर्ने हुन्छ.
Yes. So अर्को चाहिँ critical incident method भन्ने छ अर्को एउटा हैन. Any idea? Critical incident भनेको के हो भनेर? Critical incident. Someone you सुनेको हुनुपर्छ अथवा you can just take a guess as well. Critical incident भन्ने बित्तिकै critical incident मा चाहिँ based on certain critical factors. के सबै चीजमा अप्रेस गर्ने होइन कि certain only based on certain critical factors that are determinant of job performance, the employee is evaluated. So basically, when you say critical incident appraisal, we're talking about a professional evaluation system that focuses on key behaviors, not all behaviors, key behaviors that differentiate between doing a job effectively or ineffectively. Basically the appraiser in this case, jots down or writes down notes or anecdotes describing employees' actions that were specifically effective or ineffective, right? It's not a sad example. You'll understand that. First of all, you need to define the critical incidents, core key factors that are determinant of job performance, and then you evaluate the employee on those key factors. And that may not incorporate everything that the employee does at the workplace, only the critical factors or the critical incidents. For instance, just a minute. So critical incidents, go through it. Critical incidents, yes, deposits related or loans related banking industry context, right? So to employee को अरु धेरै कुराहरु हुन सक्छ तर पर्टिकुलर एम्प्लोयी को पर्फर्मेन्स अप्रेस गर्ने चाहिँ यदि उसको रोल चाहिँ भन्यो लोन र डिपोजिट रिलेटेड रोल हो भने यो दुईटा क्रिटिकल इन्सिडेन्ट मात्रैले चाहिँ उसको पर्फर्मेन्सलाई अप्रेस गर्ने के. So I've written down only two. There could be more than two, 5, 7, 10 critical incidents. So basically, when we say, critical incident method, we're talking about, this is a behavior-based appraisal because it is, more related to how the employee acted or behaved on certain, critical aspects of job performance, right? It doesn't deal with things like, the employee is, let's say, creative or imaginative or aggressive at the workplace. No, certain specific critical incident ma how did the person fare out on those critical incidents भनेर चाहिँ यसमा जज गरिन्छ यसको स्ट्रेंथ चाहिँ के हो भने it looks at behavior, a list of critical incidents provides a rich set of examples that can be used to point out which employee behaviors are desirable and which are not desirable and call for improvement. So I think I've spoken much on critical incident. Is that clear now? Yes. Yes, no, sir. Yes, Shira. Has everyone left? Yes, Sunil.
Yes, sir.
What is your understanding of critical incident method of performance appraisal?
So critical incident मा चाहिँ अब गिभिङ सर्टेन टास्क हैन सर उसलाई चाहिँ कुनै एउटा टार्गेटहरु दिने त्यो टार्गेट चाहिँ मिट हुन्छ कि हुँदैन त्यसको बेसिसमा गए
Yeah, exactly. More specifically, more specifically, you define the critical incidents, the critical factors that are determinant of job performance, not everything that the employee does at the workplace, and you appraise the employee performance based on those critical factors. Okay? So, anything you'd want to add to this? The discussion is going really, not going well. So maybe you can pick it up.
Yes, sir. यो चाहिँ this would be more specific to हाम्रो project based अब एउटा प्रोजेक्ट असाइन गरिदिने अनि त्यो प्रोजेक्टलाई उसले कसरी क्यारी गर्छ त्यसको हिसाबमा.
Okay, fine. So अर्को चाहिँ there is this thing called just a minute. Let me share the screen again. Orco method say there is this thing called graphic rating scales, right? Any idea what this should be all about? Graphic rating scales. I think this is one of the most widely used performance appraisal methods. If I'm not wrong, most of your organizations make use of this method while evaluating employee performance. And this is also one of the oldest and, as I've said, the most popular methods of performance rating scales, right? यसमा चाहिँ के गरिन्छ भने you define on the factors that are determinant of performance, right? And त्यसलाई एउटा Likert scale मा 1 to 5 को scale मा चाहिँ you appraise the employee. So it is one of the most widely used methods, right? Let me share that with you. And this method is widely popular despite of the fact that it does not provide the depth of information that, let's say, a critical incident methods provides. This is most widely used because they are less time consuming to develop and administer. And then more specifically, they provide a quantitative analysis, and it is when there are numbers associated here. So when it does provide a quantitative analysis, and which is useful for comparison purpose. Okay. So yeah, it is because of these reasons it is widely used. बुझ्यो? So graphic rating scales, but last month there is this method called, just a minute. Yeah. Absolute method, there is this method called behaviorally anchored rating scales, or bars. Behaviorally anchored rating scale, basically bars a critical incident method र graphic rating scale को combination हो behaviorally anchored rating scale चाहिँ. You list down critical incidents, right? अनि त्यो critical incidents लाई चाहिँ एउटा scale मा राखेर 1 2 3 4 5 को scale मा राखेर you evaluate the employee. This is referred to as behaviorally anchored rating scales, or bars, right? This again is pretty straightforward. Understood, everyone? Hello?
Yes, sir.
I think I don't see the discussion going any further today. I want to stop it here. मलाई अर्को दुईटा slide गर्न मन थियो, तर suddenly a few people have left, and suddenly I get the impression that we've lost interest for the day, right? So I'll not drag it further for today. मलाई management यो अर्को relative method र management by objectives पनि आज सिद्धाएर next मा चाहिँ we'll do a case study भन्ने थियो. Probably I'll stop it here, and in the next session so we should be able to wrap up performance appraisal, right? Let me just a minute. Yeah. So yes, performance appraisal methods, absolute method, relative method. We've covered the absolute method today. We talked about essay, checklist, force choice, critical incident, graphic rating, and behaviorally anchored rating scales. I'd stop it here. In the next session, we'll talk about relative method and behaviorally oriented method, right? And we'll also talk about the errors that are likely to occur in performance appraisal. More or less your theoretical aspects lecture discussion, and we'll spend more time on how to go about conducting an appraisal discussion. I think that would be of interest to you people. Is that fine? I don't want to continue further for today. Is that okay? Someone speak up at least now.
Yes, sir.
Yes, sir.
So all